Hello, welcome to Linebreak Rugby podcast. Today you have me, your host, Sav. We have a special guest with us, the driving Maul, or Paul, as we're going to refer to him to the rest. So if you're interested in rugby, I suggest you go over to his YouTube channel and check him out. He does a lot of good reaction videos and pre-game, post-game chat. So Paul, if you'd like to say hi.
Hello, how you doing?
Cool. So he's going to be talking to us today about any number of things. We're going to be going on tangents and talking about this weekend's rugby. I also have Ed and Fred, traditional Wallopy Joe and the Frenchman. If you two just want to say hi.
What's up?
Hi.
Excellent. And we discussed getting a running order ready, but we didn't actually do it in any way, shape or form. So, go on.
How about we go the order of the games?
Yeah, go on then. So you want to talk about Italy and Ireland first, and you want to talk about Conor O'Shea?
Yeah, I don't really mind, but it's been quite a lot of opinion on Conor O'Shea's tenure with Italy.
Mm-hmm.
How have they made any progress? Is he getting them to make any progress? And is there a point going? Some people are asking, is there a point even taking the Italy job? Because are you ever going to achieve anything with them? I think it's a bit harsh. You're not going to get results instantaneously with them. So I think you've got to look at the long run. What do you think?
No, I agree. And I also, if you take a step back and have a look at the club level, which technically O'Shea's meant to be helping out with a little bit with development, how much that's actually happening while he's an international coach, I don't know. But they beat Scarlets 22-12, I think. In the Pro 14. So, they're seeing at club level, they're seeing a little bit of impact. Go on.
Yeah, pretty sure Scarlet's A-team was playing at Twickenham that day.
Yeah, but so was Italy's forward pack. Italy's forward pack were playing for Italy. Go on, Paul, you had...
Now,
going to say...
Okay, let's be honest. The two Italian sides have done better this season. There's no two ways about it. They are stepping up. And a lot of that has been attributed to Conor O'Shea coming in, adding in a bit of professionalism, getting their fitness up especially. And let's be honest, Italy, we've known over the years, maybe are competitive for the first 50, 60 minutes if they're lucky, and then just basically fall away. And we've seen it again this season, but at least within their club level, they're holding on for a bit longer and actually winning the odd game. But just at international level, they still just don't have depth of quality.
The club level, I think I saw they'd won the last 4 games in a row, and that's four wins out of 7, which for an Italian side at the club level is the most wins that they've had. I think you can't quote me on that, sadly, because I haven't really checked it. But
yeah, but you're talking about 2 of those were Italian derbies. So yes, yeah. So Treviso beat Zebre twice, and then managed to string two wins together. Okay, let's not try and overcook it. They are doing a lot better. They're not as bad as the Kings. They're not as bad as Ospreys. They're not as bad as those teams. But they're still not good sides. And we've seen from Scotland for many years now. If you're trying to pick a national team from 2 sides who aren't very good, then you're awful. And until the last 3 maybe years, when Glasgow steps up. That's what we've seen with Scotland. Is that basically they've got 2 poor teams, and if you pick a national team from 2 poor teams, you're just not going to be competitive.
I think even if you pick a national team from 1 good team, you're going to struggle because as Scotland is finding out, as soon as some of their players are off or not quite ticking the same way as they are, your performance is going to drop. We've seen Russell, and obviously this is moving on to a wrong patch. We should be talking about Italy and Ireland, but we've seen Russell not quite clicking very well. And as a result of that, the rest of the team have to adapt. They're bringing Laidlaw in at 10. They're having to do different things. Sorry, it's early morning and my throat has decided to give up on me. And if you don't have the depth that England have, you don't have the depth that France have. I mean, the French depth's a bit ridiculous at the moment because they've got a lot of teams, but they're not necessarily a lot of Frenchmen in those teams. The Irish have a reasonable amount of depth with 2 very good provinces and then 2 very decent backup provinces. So I think even Scotland, even with one team, so we're going to see Italy get this, maybe they'll get this reasonably strong team in a couple of years' time. They're still going to struggle with depth, because if they lose a couple of players or they're not playing very well, even at that point, Italy are still going to struggle.
Absolutely.
So I think they'll find it hard to convince Joe Rugby public in England and Ireland that they're going to be worth the money, because we're seeing a sport which is second maybe in the country and is quite well followed and lots of participation, compared to Italy, where football is obviously dominating and rugby's not their thing.
True, and also they don't play sports in school and all this kind of stuff, so there's a lot of things fighting against them. I get that, but here we're talking about, are they worth their place in the Six Nations? Essentially, is where we're coming at.
Yes.
And what everyone's saying is, should Georgia be there rather than Italy? At the end of the day,
Yeah.
that's. But
Ed
let's
has
be
something
honest.
very. I mean, go on, Ed, if you want.
It's no. I a couple of weeks ago. I didn't want to have this conversation until after the Six Nations ended, just because I feel like I've had it and I've read through it dozens of times, and it's constantly the exact same thing. And I think people it's. In fact, I'll cherry pick out some of the things I said from one of my comments yesterday, but I think Georgia has at least some right to feel slightly aggrieved at, their position in World Rugby and who they play every year and the competition they're in. But I think people tend to either dismiss Italy slightly too much out of hand or just not give them their dues. And Conor O'Shea, correct me if I'm wrong, but Conor O'Shea's contract with Italy is for 6 years, is that right?
I'm not sure.
No one knows. Oh, that's good. Well,
you know more than we do.
I'm not entirely sure I do, but I'm fairly sure he's only about a third of the way through what he's trying to do with Italy. And I think they have shown, granted, I do get they are still the whipping boys, and if you compare the record over the last two Six Nations so far to all of the ones before that, their record is still pretty much the same, if not worse. But considering what O'Shea is trying to do, I think it's maybe at least one season too early, if not 2 or 3, to start jumping on the fact that Italy have shown improvement in the years since they've joined the Six Nations. The problem is that so has everyone else.
No, they haven't. They're awful. Okay.
What?
Sorry. Conor O'Shea is a good coach. He's doing good things. He is improving Italian rugby. I've seen your hand. I'll be back with you in a sec. It is going well. What I would though, so I'm going to fight both sides of the argument here, which is probably not very good. I'll bash myself on both sides of the head. So Italy are poor. They need to improve. They haven't really improved since the beginning of, since they joined. They used to win games. They've not won a game in 3 years. It's just awful. Georgia though have never beaten a Tier 1 country. Italy had to beat 2 or 3 Tier 1 countries before they were given a chance. Georgia have not gained the right yet to be in the Six Nations, because they've not beaten any Tier 1 countries ever. So anyway.
Go on, Ed.
Okay, it's fine. Yeah, okay. I do agree with most of what you're saying. They beat 5 teams, I think, between about 94, 95 and 97 or 98, and that was Scotland once, France once, and Ireland a whopping 3 times, which is quite impressive. One of the points that was brought up to me was that...
But that's Italy beat those teams, right?
Yes. Georgia aren't getting these opportunities, and that is one of the things that I am fully on board with, the fact that Georgia desperately need to play more Tier 1 teams and have more game time against Tier 1 opposition. And whether that's the Six Nations or they go the full hog and get games against New Zealand, South Africa, Australia and Argentina, the issue is they're just not getting those game times. But to me, the Six Nations is not the platform to be giving them that game time at the moment. And they need to demonstrate that, they can play games against those teams, but then it comes down to finding the time in the rugby calendar to get them those game times, which there is plenty of. It's just not being utilised very well by whoever organises it all. Or
I think it would be hard to. You've got the November break and the international kind of area. And I think obviously there's a lot of people that want to put England versus Australia, England versus New Zealand, and Ireland versus Wales, or Ireland versus Argentina, and all these other games that are pretty much, they've not become set in stone, but they're very much the traditions. And to suddenly go, okay, Georgia should play Argentina instead, or Georgia should play Wales instead, I don't know. You're going to get it will be not upsetting the apple cart, but people will see it as pointless, because then Wales put out a B team, they still beat Georgia by 50 points, and then people will say, well, what's the point?
They beat them by 1 point.
Go on. They beat them by 1 point.
Yeah, actually, there's no reason.
But Georgia are getting a game.
Why Northern Hemispheres can't play each other in November. There's absolutely no reason. Fair enough for England and Ireland to bring in Australia, New Zealand, South Africa, and everything. Teams like France and Scotland can play Georgia.
And Georgia are getting one game per November window now. It's just like Tonga do, Samoa, Fiji, Japan. They're all getting one game each during that November window. Now, Japan last year drew with France. Now, they beat South Africa in the last Rugby World Cup. We're not hearing massive amounts of noise about putting Japan in the Rugby Championship. But Japan are the top tier 2 nation, and they're the next guys who deserve the step up, not Georgia.
That's an interesting point. I think the reason we're not seeing a huge call for them to go into the Rugby Nations or the Rugby Championship is people are still getting over the fact that Argentina are in there, and it's not as if Argentina don't deserve to be there, but there's still this idea. They're still there. They're still not necessarily winning as many games.
I think they did, but we're playing on we're assuming that sport has any say in this. These competitions have no,
the other big thing about
in actual results, like you're not gonna. Georgia is fucking far away. It doesn't bring any money. It's so far away. It doesn't bring. I had to.
Okay, so we're allowed to swear on the podcast. Good.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Right. So 2 things. One, Argentina have totally screwed themselves over by only picking from one team and not picking European players. So
we agree.
They're reversing that for the Rugby World Cup because they realise that actually they're totally buggered if they just pick from Jaguares. It doesn't work. Japan will come into the Rugby Championship at some point, and I've gone blank. Was it Frenchie? Ed, I think it was saying that it's not about sport, it's about commercial contracts, right? How are we going to sell the Six Nations to a French TV company, to an Italian TV company, if they don't know if Italy's in next year or not? Are BBC Scotland going to be able to buy it? You're not, exactly. You're not going to be able to sell it to Georgia National TV because they're not going to know if they're in or not the following year. You can't sign a 5 or a 10-year, or a 5 or a 3-year contract thing, and that's what the Six Nations is all about. Six Nations pays for rugby in Europe, essentially, especially across England, Ireland, Scotland, Wales. It's what pays for these teams. The Aviva Premiership, the Pro 14, they make some money, but not much. The November tours, it's a bit of nice cash in the back pocket, but the Six Nations is what basically pays for European rugby, and they're not about to start throwing it away.
That'll be quite a double-edged sword because obviously we have rising nations. I mean, I can't remember the other rising nation. It's Romania and Georgia. These tier 2, very much tier 2 teams, unless they create their own league and set up everything on their own without the support of surrounding nations, they're never going to become tier 1, even in 10, 15 years' time, unless they set up their own completely new league.
I think Romania have a league.
Tier 1. Yeah, no, but I mean, like, they'd have to make their Georgia, Romania, Spain, Germany kind of their own Cup of Nations. They'd have to create one themselves and then get to the level by playing themselves and training themselves, coaching themselves. So we're kind of saying this is as many countries that we ever want to play rugby, because unless there's a method of them playing rugby more often with us, then they're never going to get to that level. I don't know how you fix that and try and get more countries playing, but there's an issue in that respect. Whereas you've got someone like England football team can play San Marino or can play other friendly games against other European nations. Go on.
So, right, let's head off and down a total tangent and ignore Six Nations.
Yeah. It's all tangents.
Right, next global calendar. So, starts in 2020, goes for 12 years. And so Romania and Georgia will get one game a year during the June window, where basically Italy or Scotland, who no one else wants to play, they'll stop off there on the way and get their other 2 games somewhere else. So that's what's going to... So at least they are going to get a few more games there. But by putting in that 12-year global calendar, we have basically, or the World Rugby has basically said, we are not going to have any new Tier 1 nations in the next 14 years. That's the statement that's been made.
Pretty much, yeah.
By saying that. So, yeah, you're right. There's this idea of a global game, of it expanding. Yes, it will do, but at glacial pace. I mean, we talk about glacial Greg with his passing being slow. World Rugby, hey, make him look like a cheetah. And it's going to be very slow progress. There's not going to be any much change at all. The one fly in the ointment, the one thing that could really put the cat among the pigeons, is South Africa. Now, at the end of 2020, the Rugby Championship and the Super Rugby contract come up for renewal on TV. If it's going to go the way it has gone, with Australia basically going, we don't like rugby anymore, and the Cheetahs and the Kings being kind of successful in the Pro 14, then we could see South Africa saying goodbye to Australia and New Zealand, say hello to Europe. And if they do that, then the whole global calendar gets thrown out the window, we start again. So there is that possibility in that window, when those TV contracts come up for renewal, that we could see a big shift in world rugby powers, full stop. You've got Argentina, who have gone off and set up the America's Rugby Championship with their countries, and maybe they could look after that.
I think that's quite interesting. I see your hand, Ed. I'll chuck you over in a second. I think it's quite interesting that when that comes and the crunch time comes between South Africa, Super Rugby, and whether they move up to the Pro 14, I think that's a huge opportunity for World Rugby to say, look, we can actually sort a lot of the ongoing player disputes that we're having about playing time and the crunch of injuries and everything. You don't think it's going to happen? I think it's possible that they can try and rearrange a season so that we don't have our top level teams, so our Lions players.
The Lions players. There's like 3 of them. They're all injured. Just stop. The Lions injuries. They change everything. You're talking about 30 players. It doesn't change fucking anything.
Well, it's pointless.
They're all injured. Just every 4 years. Every 4 years. Everything. You're talking about 30 players. It doesn't change fucking anything.
But no, it does, because I've talked about this before. But say you've got Farrell and Billy Vunipola, they're injured, right? And then you, well, yeah, but say he had a back problem at some point. You bring Lazowski into 10, you bring Good in, and then you bring a new hot shot onto the bench where Lazowski, could be. You've then got a possible academy player. I forgot about your hand, Ed. We'll just not throw things.
No, sorry. I was actually just scratching something off my phone. That was next to the camera. Sorry.
But we're basically bumping up. We're bumping up academy players, and it's the same issue with Marcus Smith, who's now the starting. He's the starting 10 for Quins. We had a long chat about that. About at 18, should he be looking to play 15 years of rugby from the age of 18? Completely. I think it's very high. It's highly unlikely for him to be starting week in, week out at the age of 18. To never getting a serious injury up until the age of 80 or 35.
I think Paul is loving our professionalism.
Retirement 85. Yes.
85 would be a long career. To be fair,
right,
we don't know medical mysteries. Yeah, we're all about it.
Quite good, eh?
So 2 things. 1,
Go on.
Either players take pay cuts and they play less games, or 2, you restructure your format in Europe to be similar to New Zealand, South Africa, and New Zealand. Okay, it's not the internationals. The internationals get enough money; they play enough rugby. It's the next guys down that just if you reduce the number of club games in Europe, how is a Gareth Steenson going to play enough games to earn himself a living? He's not. So unless you're going to have that third that tier below and the Euro Premiership that plays during internationals, which is what we see in the Southern Hemisphere with the Currie Cup, with the NPC, with the New Zealand, with the National Rugby Championship in Australia. Unless you're going to have the extra tier, which means totally ripping up how rugby is structured in Europe, which will never happen, then basically you're not going to have enough games for the players to play to actually earn a living below international level, and those guys are going to be able to earn a living somehow.
I think that comes down to, obviously there's the wage argument that Saracens are making as well, about they want to just pile money into club rugby. But I think they obviously don't. They're not caring. They're not necessarily caring about player welfare particularly. They're just looking to buy players and put players in. It's not necessarily.
If 11 out of your 12 teams make a loss, and you want to start spending more, you need your head seeing to. I'm sorry, but they're going to go bust. We've seen what happened to Richmond previously. We've seen what's happened to London Welsh. You're going to see a whole bunch of those go bust unless they start making some money. It's not like the clubs are fleecing the players at the moment, because, hey, if they're fleecing the players, they'll be making massive profits. They're not. They're playing the players what they can afford to.
Yeah. Well, Saracens, I can't see Saracens going bust. But well, I'm hearing myself on feedback, which is not great. The issue I have with Saracens is obviously they're funded by, well, not obviously, they're funded by a South African billionaire of sorts who's funneling money in, who's using it as kind of his playground, which isn't necessarily, it's not a sustainable source, but they're the driving force for everybody else to have to do a similar thing to remain.
And that's exactly where you want to go.
They're not able to put the same level of money and funding in.
Oh, fuck no.
Well, yeah, but that's the issue. That's what we'll end up with.
And that's exactly where you want to go.
Because
please give us more Montpelliers.
The guy at Toulon is about to pull out and basically said, "I've had enough of spending all this money because I've won a couple of European Cups. What am I going to do now? I'm a bit bored, really." So Toulon's basically about to shut down, or at least slowly slip down the pecking order as they spend less money. Saracens are making a long-term bet they can make that they can somehow persuade all the people who live around nearby their stadium, double the size of their stadium, and actually make some money back eventually.
And that is how Ireland beat Italy.
It's full circle. Absolutely perfect. We're really on our. Well, to be fair, we did follow our schedule that we'd written out before.
There was a logical. There was a lot. We just followed some sort of logic.
Yeah, perfect tangent. So, should we talk about Wales England now?
So you don't want your big stat attack from the whole Ireland.
Ireland Italy was the only one that I haven't actually seen. I think I was wandering along a Dutch canal at the time, so I sadly wasn't able to watch it. But stats wise, actually, I didn't actually see. But the brief highlights that I saw made me think that Conan is putting pressure on Stander at 8. Actually,
Ireland played well generally.
Until the replacements.
They had a very good first half, very different second half. But they're kind of obsessed with who's going to play what position, who's going to do what, etc. But they're not really. They rely on Conor Murray a lot, and it's a bit weird how they're obsessed with they're a bit too obsessed with their selection rather than the way they're playing.
I'd say they're over reliant on Sexton. They need Sexton there to shout at them, tell them what to do, because it's an overcomplicated game plan, and no one else can remember it. Let's be honest, this game was over in the first half because they scored 4 tries, and by then they got the bonus point. No one cared. I even tweeted out saying, "Guys, you could have warned me that the game wasn't worth watching. I would have anyway, but you could have warned me." and everyone came because people normally being in New Zealand, I watch a lot of these games on record, and people tell me, "I'll just watch the last 10 minutes of Ireland versus France." No one warned me with this game because everyone just knew that it was a bore fest. To be honest, and this defenders beaten, 27 defenders by Ireland beaten compared to 6 by Italy. Clean breaks, 15 clean breaks.
Yeah,
this shows you
there's one interesting stat. There's one interesting
get slightly more interesting
score at half
towards the
time,
end.
28-0. Score at the, of the second half, 28-19. 28-0. Score at the, of the second half, 28-19.
Yeah, they were.
So when Ireland brought on their subs,
they're gonna shit on their subs a lot, but it wasn't.
Yeah, their game
subs,
plan started to die.
Not quite firing. And to be fair, they were Italy. Even though in the first half were trying really hard stuff, they were genuinely throwing the ball around, trying some risky moves, and offloading. And when it didn't work, Ireland got tries off that. One of them was a really good turnover from Levy. Buniaki beats one defender, makes a pass, try. Another one was an intercept from the one where Henschel got injured. There's quite a lot came of Italian errors, well exploited, more than Ireland's attacking off set piece or doing first up attack. More than Ireland attacking off set piece, doing first up attack.
I'd agree. I don't think Ireland or even England, which we'll get on to next, have really shown us much in attack this Six Nations yet. I think they're both well below their best, and they're organised. They're doing some nice stuff, but they're not. They're a long way from being kind of where they were, or being number 2, number 3 in the world. They don't look like those that level of team at the moment to me.
Yeah,
I certainly think Ireland look almost unimaginative in phase 2. When against France, there was a complete lack of. I don't know. I feel like we know what French teams do. They're a big forward pack, and then they hope that somebody in the back 3 can strike a bit of magic and score, which is what Teddy Thomas ended up doing. So I mean that's kind of the French way. But the issue being is that Ireland's way of combating that was to do one-out runners and crash into them. Which, if they do that against England, then France, they're going to have trouble just generally, because that's not a game plan that I would see working. Yeah, they've got trouble against France. I mean, if you've got Law's launch where you've actually got decent turnover players, I don't know. Ireland are going to have to, like you said, they're quite reliant on Sexton to make the backline tick. And certainly if Farrell and Joseph and them get up in their face and actually manage to put that back, then they haven't. I don't see them having much option. And I think Conan would be the wild card, actually. The more I think about it, we know what Stander can do. People have played with Stander. He's been on the tour with the boys. They understand how he plays. But Conan, I can honestly say that if I wasn't so interested in rugby, I wouldn't have seen him play for Leinster. And so I reckon that he would be a reasonable unknown for them. And so him bringing his game to an international level might be the kick that Ireland need. I don't know. I'll be interested, obviously, in the Ireland-England game. But we're here to talk about England-Wales.
One last thing before we move on from Ireland. I'm amazed how little treatment Sexton's had over the last 2 games. Here's a guy that we know is fragile, we know kicks off, has a bit of temperament. Why there haven't been a couple of extra late hits on him? Let's be honest, France a couple of years ago were brutal in hitting him late and taking him out. This time they treated him like some sort of kid's gloves. Oh, we can't touch you. I expect Sexton at some point to get a bit more treatment because, he's fragile and he has a temperament. So, as a coach, I would say, get a couple of early late hits on him. The ref will warn you, then back off. But let him know you're there. And
well, if we believe what the Lions chat about Rob Howley not really running the back line, we know that Farrell and Sexton have perhaps collaborated in some way to help run a Lions backline. I'm just wondering. Farrell obviously is going to want to get up in Sexton's face in an England-Ireland game because that's what Farrell does, and he's going to make a rugby league-esque, shoulder hit quite hard. And Laws is obviously going to be hunting Sexton down as well. So we've got at least 2 players on the pitch that are not only going to be hunting for him, but if they get him, are going to be hitting quite hard. and I think kind of know Sexton's game. They've played him enough, and they played with him a little bit to know what his game plan is and what his strengths and what his weaknesses are. So yeah, I think that Sexton, again, as Fred said earlier as well, he is, or actually Paul said earlier, he's the key to Ireland. And if you rock him, then they're left with Conor Murray running things, and maybe they put Jordan Lamore in at 10, or I don't know who actually, or Carberry.
Carberry.
10 running. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I expect Launchbury and Underhill should be the two that giving a bit of attention, because obviously Farrell should be looking at Bundyaki since he's in 12 rather
Pushing
than 10.
out,
But yeah, I'd expect Courtney Laws, Underhill, Rob Shaw, they should all be looking at getting into Sexton's face and letting him know they exist. Because and also Sam Simmons, he's a quick guy as well. But I'd be surprised if Wales don't give him a bit. Navidi's not a slow guy. Shingler's been playing some great rugby. I'd expect Wales to give him some attention first. He might not make it as far as the England game, in all honesty.
If Moriarty gets angry, yeah.
If I was Wales, that's what I would be doing. I'd be making sure he gets hit several times. And as I say, don't worry about being late. The ref will let you get away with one and tell you to calm down.
I think it's quite interesting. So Wales' style is obviously now an adapted Scarlets team in effect, or it certainly was versus Scotland. They've got a better pack obviously than the Scarlets, and they've got a back line that's, apart from Josh Adams, I think, and actually is the whole backline Scarlets, or is it just Josh Adams?
Well, Josh Adams and Halfpenny got injured, so they so Anscombe came in for Halfpenny in the second game, but yeah.
So certainly, I mean, Wales are reliant on Scarlets, but the problem is Scarlets are, as far as I know, they're just an attacking, exciting team. I mean, whatever niggle that they've got isn't necessarily a nasty niggle. So we might see Gatland might have to put his authority on, or Alan Wynne-Jones is going to have a chat with them and say, look, let's actually do that. Let's front up to Ireland a little bit and put the pressure on Sexton, because otherwise if they try and just play this expansive Scarlet style of rugby, it's not necessarily going to be the effective way of beating Sexton, Team Sexton, as we can now refer them to.
Those ones, the Scarlets have got a bit more defence about them than just pure attack. You don't win any sort of championship without some sort of defence, and they showed Bath. They showed Bath how to defend as well. So yeah, you're right. They're not a niggly side, but they can defend. And you're right. It's the forwards you're going to want to have hitting Sexton. I can't see Pratchell, for example, or Anscombe really sort of hitting Sexton hard. It's going to be your Navidis, your Shinglers, your Moriartys, maybe Corey Hill. I mean, he can get around a bit as well. So one of these guys has got to get up in his face and hit him a few times. If you spread it around and have late hits from different players, again, the ref's not going to be quite so not going to flash a yellow card so quickly. So you've got to be intelligent about it. You can't just go in there and just whack him around the head. But if you catch him with a couple of late hits, you'll definitely get him angry.
Yeah. So if we bounce off.
Now there's a guy who had a good game at the weekend, a Marmite player. We have got a few Marmite players around the place, but I think Brown had a cracker at the weekend.
It was kind of hard for him not to have a good game, considering how often he was fed the ball. Because
Wales decided to just kick him all day.
Yeah, and considering he had I can't remember. I don't have the stats in front of me, but I think he had 116 meters. He had some ridiculous running stats, but that's because
I'll be honest. I won't use the stat of the meters made by fullback to gauge of the quality of his game, because one, when you're at fullback you get every time, but or you pass the ball, which sometimes is a better solution, not always, but sometimes it's a better choice than running it. And when you've got Mike Brown on the ball, you know who's running.
Well, yeah, that's the point. He was given so much opportunity. Wales,
but your original point stands.
Their entire what the word has completely escaped my head right now. Tactic was just to feed him the ball over and over and over again. And whereas you had Ford and Farrell chipping the ball over the defence against a back three who were unfamiliar with what was going on, and they were constantly getting the ball either into touch or into empty space. The Welsh back three just gave it back to Mike Brown, and then he could have a clear run up.
You're right, it wasn't working, and even when they did put him under pressure, he still won the ball. So he was really, really good in the air.
And even when he does go into contact,
and they get going.
He's still extremely good at recycling the ball so that, you know, there is quick delivery for the scrum half, and we're able to arrange our attack again. And so, I still think Farrell should have had man of the match, or Robshaw, or Launchbury. Launchbury just about offload for the try.
I think Farrell was by far your key man.
It's Eddie Jones.
If we lose Farrell before the World Cup, that was the only comment in the thread that I actually agreed with, and we're talking about the controversial thread on Reddit, is that if we lose Farrell before the Rugby World Cup, we're not lost, as the comment suggested, but we are at a huge disadvantage. He's our metronome off the tee, and if we look at Ford's stats, they're not actually quite good enough really to step up. Even back in the day, for Charlie Hodgson had a better kicking rate than Ford did. And we've got the situation. Is this news to you, Paul?
I know. I didn't realise he was that bad. I mean, I know Charlie. I mean, Charlie Hodgson was a fantastic club player, awful international player. But no, I thought George Ford would be better than that. Just a quick stat. So Mike Brown, 118 metres run with ball off 16 runs, and what is going to absolutely surprise everybody, 5 passes.
I don't remember seeing any of them.
Surprising.
Well, I'm not even kidding.
He caught it deep and popped it to Johnny May.
Contact. He did a Rob Garney kind of game.
Yeah. Classic Carney move. Maneuver. But I will say it's Eddie Jones has kind of snapped a little bit at one and had a go at another. A couple of journalists asking questions about Mike Brown, and he's had a go that, you know, the press are always willing to pick the team and don't.
Yeah,
think
he said you're the ones who don't rate him.
And he's clearly backing his horse.
That was a good answer.
Yeah, but I think in fairness, if you ignore the Argentina tour, it's been a fair old while since he's had any stretch of, you know, really, really good form. So I suppose a lot of it might just be down to the fact that, considering how much ball
Quins fan, Ed.
Well, we're shit, so whatever. The amount of ball he was given meant that he could shine and he could show off and he could put in a more obvious performance, I suppose, than he's had recently. But yeah, as I say, Farrell in particular, I think, especially for Farrell for setting up May's first try, and Launchbury for setting up his second try. There was a lot there, I think. That
I think we're more reliant even on Farrell in defence than we are Jonathan Joseph, to be honest.
That's because Farrell in defence is immense. He misses.
He's making hits and momentum-changing hits on people.
He missed 7 tackles against Wales.
He made an amazing turnover. I can't remember who it was on.
And now, Scott Williams, was it, where he just completely crushed... Oh no, the turnover. I'm remembering he just stopped Scott Williams dead in his tracks by basically just clinging onto him and thus falling over. But I remember the turnover as well.
That was a match-winning.
I can't remember who against. But
right. I mean, he missed 7 tackles. The next guy the most misses was Sean Evans with 4, and we all know that Evans can't defend for his life. So
Steph Evans.
Sorry, not Sean Evans. Jeez, sorry. So 7 is a lot to miss. Launchbury came off early.
It's not always necessarily a negative in this case, because they've adapted the same kind of tactic as Saracens, where they will rush up as quick as they can. And so even if Farrell does get bounced, and he did get bounced a couple of times, he is completely stalled.
I'm with you on this,
setup,
especially with the kick chase.
Which gives the rest of the defenders time to rush in and actually completely the tackle.
And you've slowed down the foot. You've made more effort than if you're not chasing hard and the fullback runs at you 20 metres further down and you put him down. So your stat looks worse, but your effect on the game has been bigger by missing that tackle. So your stats are deceptive by missing that tackle.
True, but when we're talking from a player of the game, man of the match point of view, Launchbury went off early and yet made 19 tackles, which was a high for the England team. It was second most in the entire game. So, I think Launchbury for me was the man of the match. Farrell had a great game, but I'd personally rate Launchbury over Farrell.
If we're going to go based just solely on stats very quickly, one of the really interesting ones I think was that Dylan Hartley actually put in a decent shift, made a decent number of tackles before going off in the 50th minute or so. But I think Wales' replacement hooker, Elliot D, he was on the pitch for about 16 minutes and made more tackles than Hartley, which I think is phenomenal.
That is
nearly twice as many. Hartley made 5 tackles.
Maybe they didn't
all.
I think that's
only
also
5, whereas
something
Elliot D made 9. So,
is how far from the ruck you are. So, for example, Launchbury will probably 2 or 3 men away from the ruck in defence, which is where most of the because they don't want to straight away to a ruck. They'll usually have a 1 forward and forward to forward and attack there. So you're going to get your Launchburys and your Rob making lots of tackles, and Hartley, who's closer to the ruck, won't have as many tackles to make. And attack there.
Fair.
There's definitely an element of that, and I think one of England played a very direct game in this one, and you can tell that by all of the starting 8 forwards for Wales, every single one of them made more than 10 tackles. Ken Owens was the lowest with 13. There was a lot of direct running. There was a lot of one-out balls. None of the Welsh backs made more than 10 tackles. It was, which shows that it was all.
it was attritional.
It was very attritional. It was all very central. Whereas you look at Joseph made 10 tackles. We say Farrell made 13. Wales had a much more expansive game than England did, but they just dropped the ball too often and they put the ball in the grass too much.
Well, I think it was underlined by the Sam Underhill
Look at
tackle.
it again. He is so close from the line. He can't see.
But there was no
coming.
reason that a 4-on-1 shouldn't be, or a 3-on-1 as it ended up, shouldn't
diving
be
was the best
converted
choice.
into a try. Someone should have just cut the line or an inside pop.
They're not really running lines. They are hanging out of their arses at the end of 60-meter
the weird
run.
No, it was a good option.
That's what they're doing.
Because
Running
the
and
support players
line.
had run weird angles. I don't understand the lines that the Welsh players are running, because in reality they should be giving an option.
The game is a bit crazy.
They're about to celebrate.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, maybe.
They're not running line. They are 3 meters away from the try line, going full speed with after a line where the game is a bit crazy.
So you're right there, but imagine you had a born finisher like Wade or someone else, not on the ball but off on the shoulder. Yeah, he wants that try. He doesn't want Scott Williams necessarily to be the one to score that try. Not for any selfish reason, because he doesn't want particularly Wales to score, but because he wants that try. That's all he lives for, to get over that line, and so he runs a different line to make sure that he's an option to pass to.
To a tackle.
That's what someone would do.
Absolutely.
Maybe
he was,
I still think he made the right choice. He did the right thing. It was just a very clever. I've never noticed anyone make a tackle where they're trying to slide the player out like that before. I thought it was a very intelligent tackle.
It was a reasonably unique tackle, yeah, for sure. Yeah, but that was an Eddie Jones. I mean, and I love Sam Simmons. You guys know that. But that was him making that call at half time to go, look, we don't need a rapid ball carrier on the outside. We need someone who's going to make a big hit on some tackles in the middle.
Was he not taken off due to injury concerns?
Yeah.
Oh, was he off? Was he off for injury?
I think he got a stinger on his leg or something like that, and so
my fantasy team's in bits then.
He was hobbled off, I think, at half time, and so maybe it wasn't as bad as it seemed, and it was just a tactical change.
No, you're just reassuring me. Now. You're just reassuring me.
The sense I got was that
I remember.
Yeah, I
that.
think at the end of the first half he hobbled off. So
Is
might
that
be
I've
worth
got
checking
I've
your
got
rating.
Henshaw's shoulders an issue. I've got Simmons now. I've just learned he's got dodgy. How I'm going to have to bring in a bucket load of the French team to try and bolster.
What about
my,
Watson? Watson picked up a knock.
Who else picked up a knock?
Watson.
Oh, I didn't have Watson, luckily.
Or I don't know whether it's...
Do we? Oh, that's why Noel came on. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's why Noel came on. Who, by the way, and I love him to bits, is probably not going to win the foot race when Farrell put that kick through.
No, Noel
Who's quick enough
is
to
a lot
get
of
that,
things,
Watson,
but for a winger he's not
Miguel's?
particularly quick. What he does offer,
Can't
though,
see
is...
any others.
I'm sure we've brought it up on here lots of times before. Considering how much ground he
I'm
can
not
make
sure
up
Zibo's
in
quick
contact, or how much ground he can make up through the defensive
It was a
line,
50-metre
either
run.
in contact
It
or
wasn't-
by
it
going
wasn't
around
30.
players. It doesn't matter that he's not a gas man like May, because he still makes up.
No way. No chance.
Not many people.
Zebo, to be fair, but obviously he's kind of fallen out of favour.
Well, I mean, if we're going to extend to players not playing at the moment, then, that's probably a wide bracket.
Hoggle, I think... Who's
It was a
quicker,
call as
Simmons
well,
or Noel?
like, 'cause
that's my
got the
question,
ball
because I
out of a
reckon
turnover,
Simmons might
wasn't
be
it?
in for a shot to actually
And
make
just
that
saw some
chase.
empty space, boom,
'Cause he's
kick
pretty
straight
damn
away.
rapid.
And if you look on the wide angle, as soon as Farrell gets the ball, Johnny May's already pointing at the space.
No, we've got... I can't think of another winger
yeah,
who's just
impressive.
odds on winning that ball race. Winning that foot race, sorry. And maybe...
Oh, because
Hmm.
got the ball out of the turnover,
Yeah, it was...
say, boom, kick, and look at the wide angle.
May is screaming for it as well.
Yeah.
And we talk about heads-up rugby, and that's what we saw there, which was good to see. Because we always talk about that overcoached players, blah, blah, blah. They don't play heads-up rugby, and that was a great example of it.
I don't think Johnny May's a player who you can say is overcoached.
I was talking more about Farrell, actually, with kicking the ball.
Yeah.
You would have, Sav.
No, you're
you would
spot on,
have.
you're
Have you
spot
watched the post-match interview with Eddie Jones? Because
No,
he makes a
go on.
great comment about something about May kind of
Yeah.
acting like the captain
Yeah.
or think he's the captain, and Eddie sharing a look with Dylan and just saying, "Yeah, that's not something we're looking into," or something like that.
Oh, God. Yeah, he's a character. I wish someone who's at the top level knew more about rugby, but I mean, that's just me. I love him though.
Should we
Fire.
go?
Yeah, can we not ignore the fact that he basically gave Italy a try last week?
Oh, he did, but he trusted. I think he trusted that he was quicker than the opposition winger as well.
Yeah, he thought it's okay if I give him 20 metres between me and the try line. No one's going to pass over my head.
Yeah. And I suppose he trusted that he could get back. But the game was pretty much won at that point. But yeah, he shouldn't be making that rush up error. And I feel like perhaps Daly wouldn't have made the same mistake.
Well, he did.
I
Against,
don't know.
he
Noel
did
is-
against New Zealand.
Daly got caught out on the Lions
there you
tour
go.
by trusting the inside not
Yeah,
trusting the inside man.
and that's when Cody Taylor scored in the corner.
Oh yeah, out wide. Yeah.
I'd still rather have Daly playing for us at the moment, but considering May's try count yesterday, yeah, I'm not bothered. I'm going to ask: will we go straight to Scotland, France, or
Finally, the
will
good
we
game.
mention the controversy around that try that was or wasn't?
No, wasn't. Because
It
not
was.
grounding
It
was
so
fine.
was a try. It was obviously a try.
No, there's a
try all day long.
tiny knock on before, but the was so obviously good, no problem.
Sorry.
There's a slow-mo clip on Twitter that
It's so small. I mean,
it shows that it hits his finger because he's holding his finger up, and then as it hits his finger like that, and then bounces, and essentially it looks like he's knocked it on because it's hit his hand, not his knee.
If we went through the game and looked at every single bit frame by frame,
Oh no, 100%.
half the players will be off the pitch by like 20 minutes in. So look, clearly,
Yeah.
to me that is such a marginal knock on that you don't expect that to be spotted. To say that it was inconclusive grounding was out of order. But
it was ridiculous. It was so conclusive.
Yeah,
So,
it was
anyway.
obvious. It was obviously Anscombe got
it
his
was
hand
so
to it,
clear.
and it was obvious that
Everyone
Watson
saw it.
was
That was
above it.
amazing.
I've got to be honest. At the time, I was sitting there. I was watching it in stop motion because my internet wasn't very good. I was just hear the commentary going, "Oh yeah, it looks like he's put it down. He might have got that down first." And then as soon as I heard the TMO going, "Oh, it's not conclusive," I was like, "All right, that's good for us, but this is going to cause no end of absolute hassle on Twitter and everything else." But I think I didn't really. I mean, Ed put me straight. I said, "Oh, it could have been." Was it? It could have been 12-11, or it could have been 13-12. And then you pointed out, oh yeah, but then those 3 points wouldn't have existed, and therefore it actually would have been 12-10, and the game would have. If we're
going to go the whole hypothetical route on scores, it is an absolute exercise in futility, because there is. I mean, I'm sure Eddie Jones mentioned this as well. The game is so incredibly, complicated, and it is so easy for things to change up. And if Wales score that try, granted they don't get the 3 and they get the 5 or the 7, and whatever the score is then at 9-5 or 9-7, whatever, that moment would change the game. And I don't believe for a second that had that try been scored, the rest of the game would have played out the way it did, because teams have to adapt. And
scoreboard pressure is massive.
Yeah.
It's momentum, and
we might have gone on to score 2 more tries. I mean, you never know. We could have upped the intensity. We could have stopped faffing about. And also, I suppose, I mean, think about just how much Wales turned up the intensity in the second half, because they full on started earning that right to go wide. They properly put pressure on the way we were in the first half. But then, throwing the ball out to their outside backs, they started to make a much bigger difference and a much bigger dent, to the point where it became. I mean, there are so many hypotheticals around what could have been or what should have been, but.
I heard what I think CC described as probably disbelief. But I heard a comment after the game that said, "Oh, we can use Gareth Anscombe as an impact player in the last 60 because of how well he decided to." Yeah,
last 20,
in the last 20,
60.
yeah, sorry.
Yeah, just the way the Island used Sexton as impact player for the last 80.
But all season, Gareth Anscombe in CC's eyes, I believe, has not been that instrumental attacking flair player that he's apparently turned up and done for Wales against England. Now,
it's just because CC wants to see Dan Fish
Justice for Fish. So I mean, this is a surprise for Wales as well. Obviously, Anscombe has been playing consistently for his region, but he's not necessarily been this attacking star that suddenly we had to bear the brunt of in England, where he was decided that he wanted to step through a couple of players and actually get his hands on the ball and put it down.
Well, he's when he was playing for the Chiefs in New Zealand.
I was going to say, here's a player I've actually seen in the flesh. I saw his last game for Auckland versus Northland in the would have been the ITM Cup at the time, a couple of years back, he's a quality player that I think has taken a long time to adjust to life in Wales and the Welsh system of playing. He talked to some Blues supporters, and he was basically going to be the Blues fly half for the next decade.
Oh, was it? The Chiefs. Sorry.
Now, he was at the Blues first, and then Kerwin came in, John Kerwin, great player, awful coach. And his first move was to drop Gareth Anscombe, because his dad, who obviously went on to coach in Ulster, I think, and then also across to Canada, was the regional coach, and there was accusations of nepotism and this kind of stuff. So to stamp his mark on the club, he decided to cut the vest number 10. And considering the Blues haven't had a good 10 since Carlos Spencer, it was a disastrous move, and he's basically, he got sacked a few years later.
And the Blues still have a tenants crisis. Obviously, they lost Piers Francis, and I think they've just had an injury to their young upcomer, haven't they, as well? So
I'm not sure losing Piers Francis was such a crisis as more a blessing in disguise. But but yeah, Terry Black has gone and gave himself a season-ending injury last season, so he's out for the whole season. And Perifeta has gone and injured his hand as well. So yeah, bringing Carlos back. He's only 42. He'll be fantastic.
He was playing in the tens, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was.
Yeah. He played in the Brisbane Tens, which I was just saying. Like, suddenly, Super Rugby Twitter has just come alight, and all of these accounts that I've been following that have been completely dead have suddenly started posting non-stop about the Brisbane Tens. So I've just had a flood of tweets just suddenly hit my timeline, which is great to see rugby has suddenly resurfaced after they've been asleep. But yeah, that was a big spamming during the Six Nations. Suddenly seeing all the Brisbane chat.
What a joke of a tournament, to be honest with you. A bit of a party and nothing else. It doesn't really. Only two teams pretty much trained for tens, which is the Blues and the Crusaders, and hence, hey, they made it through to the semi-finals. Funnily enough, and the teams that hadn't trained were awful in day one. Day two went, oh, that's how you play tens, and suddenly turned up. So yeah, they play tens once a year. It's a bit of a giggle. It's like the Hong Kong Sevens. People get drunk and something happens on some grass that happens to be over there.
That's brilliant.
Yeah, that's actually how I treat cricket most of the time. If I've ever been to a cricket game, it's like something's happening and then there's a big cheer and it basically is having a drink with your mates. So yeah, I can imagine that's it's still a good way to get punters in though, I suppose. They can earn a bit of money for the stadium. And with Australian rugby going down the toilet, it's probably the last hurrah, right?
Well, if you want to go off another tangent, we can go into in-depth analysis of the Australian rugby situation if you want to. But
did you well, we've talked about this before. Have you seen Eddie Jones giving it wasn't a Q&A, it was kind of a chat to the Oxford Union.
Oh yeah, that's pretty good, that.
Yeah, I mean we've talked about it, but I don't know if Paul has. But essentially he said that the worst thing that happened to Australian rugby was that it went professional. And that as a result.
Yeah, no, well, that's part of it. Another part of it is you could also say is that they did a collective bargaining agreement and X% had to go to the players, and you're going to say, well, okay, players need to get paid. I agree, but you've also got to say, and they are who people come to watch. But what produces them? And if you take all the cash out to pay your current players, where your next lot coming from? And they just didn't invest in producing new talent. And that's basically been their problem, and they're having to make up for that now. So
there's a huge deficit. I mean, we're talking about new upcoming players in Ireland, England, New Zealand, even South Africa. I mean, to an extent, they've still got some young, exciting products coming through. But if we look at Australia, I can't actually name, like, nobody's gone, oh, let's talk about, like, Reece Hodge, I assume, or Dane Haylett-Petty. These names have been kicking about for a while. We can't really be talking about them as if they're the new upcoming prospect. But then we look at New Zealand and we've got Mackenzie, we've got Geordie Barrett, we've got Rieko Ioane.
Dane Haylett-Petty is not young. He played a top 14 for Burett when we were still in the top 14.
But that's what I mean. But these are names that are then gone, oh, maybe he should be playing for Australia. And then they had Adam Ashley Cooper sitting on the wing at the World Cup. You know, we've got an Australian system which is full of old players. And
had a pretty World Cup.
There's no like, they did have a good World Cup to be fair, but they didn't. I've still not seen. And there's 3 years later, I've still not seen a young injection from Australia. I've watched the Super Rugby, not so much the Australian teams, more than New Zealand teams. But
well, keep an eye out for the Reds this year. The Reds are going to have a lot of young players coming through. They'll be awful and poor. It's a 2 or 3 year project, but they've got a lot of young players and a couple of interesting ones coming through there. So the Reds will be bringing through new players. I just don't think Brad Thorne is a coach that's got any experience, and therefore, I don't trust that he'll do a good job. But they've got some good players coming through. But you just went through those 3 players: Mackenzie, Geordie Barrett, and Rieko Ioane. That could be your 10, 12, 13 combination for the All Blacks in a couple of years' time. That is just nuts. Geordie Barrett said this year. I mean, David Mackenzie will be playing 10 for the Chiefs this year. Geordie Barrett said he's going to put on weight over the break. to come back and play. It's Christmas. It was Christmas. Over Christmas. He's booked over
I'd like to
Christmas.
announce that I did the same.
Deliberately to play 12. And Rico Arni has already said that he wants to move inside to 13. Rico plays 13 for Auckland at ITM Cup at NPC level. Damien McKenzie, all his age grade rugby has been at 10, and Geordie Barrett again has played 10 for Canterbury. Sorry. So these guys, whilst they've been playing in the back three, that's to introduce them to senior rugby. It's not. That's where they naturally play.
In the same way that Barrett was introduced at 15, and now he's obviously, well, I still don't think Barrett's actually a 10, but he's the best player in the world, but I don't think he's a 10.
He's the best player in the world 2 years running, but he's crap in his own position. I understand.
But he's not. But yeah, I also think that, I mean, obviously Hansen, we don't know if he's going to be at New Zealand for the next 5 years. He could be, but I don't think so.
No, Hansen will give up after the Rugby World Cup, and Foster will come in as the next coach for 4 years, and then after 4 years it'll be Razor out, who's coaching the Chiefs currently. It's Crusaders currently. Which is one of the problems in New Zealand rugby, is we already know who's going to be the All Blacks coaches for the next decade, even if it hasn't been officially announced.
It's set in. It's good.
So,
it's made Gatlin upset.
Yeah.
So
well, Gatlin upset. I mean, Boyd's coming over to. I've gone blank all of a sudden, but he's. Where's he going? He's going somewhere. He's going over to Saints, who's the Hurricanes coach.
Okay, yeah.
Obviously, Gatlin's upset. Someone's hitting. Oh, no, it's Cheetah's coach in Worcester. Totally different thing entirely. Anyway.
Oh, okay.
Lost track.
But I think it's interesting. I can see them still trying to use. So obviously, Anton Leonard-Brown has had a massive breakout as well. I can still see them wanting to use Ioane on the wing rather than just putting him in his favoured position at 13, just because they want to fit everybody into a system that works. And they already know that Anton Leonard-Brown is good enough to play 13 at international level.
Yeah, and obviously you've got Ryan Crotty in there as well. But we're talking post the next Rugby World Cup, really. Rico Ioane is going to be, because you're going to have Crotty, Anton Leonard-Brown in the centres until the Rugby World Cup, then Crotty will be moved aside because he won't make the following one. You've got Bowden Barrett again. He's 26 at the moment, so he'll be 28 come the Rugby World Cup.
Be positively slow by the World Cup.
Do they say yes, he'll make the following Rugby World Cup at 32? I don't know. We'll see. It depends on how well Mackenzie's going there. If Mackenzie doesn't break in and get a starting position, will he go to Tigers? According to my mate down in Hamilton, he is. Yeah, that is a serious possibility. That Mackenzie's he's only got one more year in his contract, and maybe he'll go at the end of this season. So
that would be the biggest brain. I think that would be the biggest brain drain representation, to be honest, because Sapawanga leaving was one thing, but he was always on the periphery.
But we haven't talked Scotland, France, and it is. Let's be honest, we have been going for a while now.
Yeah, we have been, and it's getting later and later, I suppose, for yourself. I'm growing into the day as we go on. So
no, Ed wants to talk Scotland, France. Go on, Ed, take us away.
I just figure we've been going on a while. I'm slightly worried that my phone is perhaps the hottest it's ever been. And good. I'm not sure how long it's going to last before the battery ups and dies.
The best reason to ever talk about it.
We'll solve the energy crisis.
Blow on it.
I think it's probably worth bringing up that there was a third match this weekend.
There was. Scotland played France.
Absolutely.
Everybody was expecting it to be an absolute dire kick fest, and Laidlaw was on the pitch, so there was and then suddenly all of it was turned on its head, and Laidlaw was man of the match, and Scotland France is suddenly playing flowing rugby all over the spot. So it was quite good
for 20 minutes.
You threw the ball out wide to Teddy Thomas, and he decided to tear it out.
We talk the coming of Lionel Buxis.
He is
the second coming.
Has any player
decided to basically be a meme of himself with the outrageous offloads on his own try line?
Has any player in the history of
10
rugby
seconds after he dropped the ball
epitomised French rugby as much as Buxis? Because that's just whatever was going on with his game.
I'm assuming Paul. I think. Oh my God, that's a close up. Paul, I think.
I've not seen this one, so
Paul,
I've gone dumb. I've not caught up on this game yet, but I have seen Bo Cease manage 12 runs for 14 metres. So obviously, clearly he was a running flying half today.
He took he didn't take a high ball. He decided to knock a high ball on, and then about 10 seconds later, was it a defensive scrum or a defensive ruck?
I think that
Something like that.
Ball popped into us under a lot of pressure, and instead of passing it left towards the post, he just went for back of the hand, blind pass went straight to hand.
Blind pass.
He kicked it out, but couldn't actually kick it out properly because he got tackled in the process. So even more pressure added to Frogs on that.
He gave it straight to Hogg, I think, didn't he?
The sheer bollocks to attempt a blind pass on his own, knowing exactly where his teammate was.
Yeah, pretty much.
That's just unbelievable. Who does that?
Unbelievable,
but
unbelievable, or so scared and unprepared to take a tackle.
Oh yeah.
No, he actually took the tackle because his pass attracted the defender onto him. So
I think that we've got to look at it from the point that he's just. I think he'd made one of the biggest mistakes that you can make as a rugby player, which is under no pressure under the high ball, knocking the ball on.
Yeah.
Which he'd done about 30 seconds earlier.
Yeah. Knocked the ball on.
And then he decided to just I don't care about that. I'm just going to give a blind.
I disagree with that, because when he drops it, the first thing I thought was, look at him, look at how angry he is with himself. He just went, I'm not going to say the word that I can lip read. It was very different from Finn's Russell grin when he missed a kick.
Well, that I think played a part. So Finn Russell got subbed off. What was it the 60th minute? No, 64th minute. They took Finn Russell off and put Laidlaw at 10. And I actually think that was done in part because when he missed that kick to touch, or he overcooked it, his response to it, I think, was just going to give Scottish fans a huge negative reaction because it showed him grinning and smiling. And I'm not saying that was his actual response. He was obviously gutted that he missed the kick. But I could see the tide turning in the Scottish fans looking at the fact that he just did that. You know?
Yeah, I can see why the fans were angry. But if they've ever watched Finn Russell before, they know that's what he does.
Yeah.
Whatever the score is, he's dancing, he's smiling, whatever's happening. So, you can say it's a flaw, but expect it.
Yeah. And to be fair, if you notice, Scottish Twitter was then going off on one saying that Laidlaw should start the next game at 10 for a brief, minute.
And Teddy Thomas had a really good game. He was good last week, and suddenly, he's the best winger in the world now. That's what he was 4 years ago when he was really good against Australia, and we didn't see him since. It's one of those things. You give 10 seconds of action for people, and suddenly they've got everything figured out.
Well, Teddy Thomas didn't miss one tackle.
No, he was very good.
He made 4.
He was very good this week. He was very good last week.
Yep.
And in the top 14 earlier on, I don't know if you've seen Castro for Racing. It was amazing. He beat about 6 defenders off a shit pass and dropped it in goal.
I tell you what,
but that's why he's been picked.
I'm quite pleased to see how well he's playing, because I think maybe last season, if not the end of the one before that, I was extremely excited to see what Virimi Vakatawa would do coming into the French side, because what I'd seen of him in the Sevens, I was quite impressed by, and that's just gone down like.
And I disagree. I think he wasn't very good yesterday, but it's one of those things where I think one person started saying, and said, somebody just added on to it, I'm really not impressed with Vakatawa, and now he's the worst player ever.
I just can't think of the last time that I thought much. I can't pick out the last time I remember thinking, this is actually fantastic. This is what I thought he would do when he came over.
So I'll look at this. I actually might make a little video on this. So the way they use Vakatawa is completely different to how they use Thomas on the right wing.
Yeah.
So Vakatawa's basically stood behind most of the attacking rucks and he's looking to do a sneaky pick and go or an inside pass off 10. That's basically his bread and butter. He loves doing a little shimmy and trying to get through a congested area.
He does a lot of that, and I'm wondering if it's part of a plan, or if it's him doing the same thing over and over again when nothing's happening. Because it seems like he only does it when the backs are not aligned or there's no forward pod available. He doesn't just do it every time somebody gets tackled near him. So I don't know if it's a tactic from the team to go, right, because you're strong for a winger, when there's nothing on, you could win 3 seconds by doing that.
But that's similar to a Jack Noel, like a pick and go off the back, a speedy pick and go,
But I feel like Jack Noel, there's something on rather than as a tactic to waste time.
Yeah. So the French. So what I've noticed on top of that. So Vakatawa will do that carry, but then all the French attacking play. So their set piece plays, they're 2 out the backs and then out round to the winger.
Yeah.
They're actually happening after that Vakatawa pick and go, and they're going to Teddy Thomas. So he's getting the good ball. So if I was, because everybody's worried about fantasy rugby, if I was to pick a French rugby winger, I would pick Thomas, because that's the way the French are playing. They're playing for, and it's different because they shouldn't. Normally, it's the left winger who scores because everybody's strong right hand, and that's how the ball gets out so easily. But for some reason, it's going the opposite. Well, even Mike Catt was rubbish off the bad hand. So I mean, you still get Mike Browns and people in a backline who aren't necessarily as great passing off their bad hands. But their strike plays do appear to always be going to the right wing. They don't seem to, unless the line out is forcing them to do them that way. They're not necessarily doing
I don't know. I think there was a bit of, everyone said, it's the same try as last week, the first Thomas try. It was the same in that he's the wing and he was on his wing.
And he was on his wing and he scored that try. Yeah, I don't think it was
Hang
the
on,
same try.
Hang on.
I was just
And then he got back inside
in the match thread, wasn't it? In the match thread, didn't you say? Maybe I'm thinking of somebody else. I could have sworn I saw someone say someone needs to fire the script lighter as they're reusing last week's try. I could have sworn that was your name next to the comment. No. Oh, okay.
The only you've reminded me of something. Then we're going to go back to talking about England. That's what we do. England, and Quins. That's what we do.
Good talking points, to be fair.
We haven't talked about Quins that much. So, just talk about Mako Vunipola very quickly.
He needed to come off about 20 minutes sooner.
Gassed. He was just completely knackered. 77th minute, 76th minute, he came off, and Hepburn came on.
Hepburn played really well when he came on last week. And he only got 4 minutes.
And obviously that was his first cap, so obviously we don't want to, crazy blood him and all of this. But we need to trust him a little bit more than 4 minutes. Because Vunipola was dead. And he wasn't a defensive liability. It's not really his fault, but he's so tired that there are gaps forming about where he would normally be.
I'm really struggling to see the point you're making.
Well, my point being
the transition from Teddy Thomas.
Well, no, because I made the comment.
Was knackered.
See, this is the thing. I made the comment in the thread saying that we need to trust Hepburn a little bit more. I think that it's similar. I mean, the French have decided. We'll bring it back to the French. Why not? The French have decided to just trust every single new kid on the block, apart from Box East, apparently, with a completely random picking of squad. There you go. That's how we'll bring it back to the French.
He's not random. He's actually the next best option. That's the sort of sad thing. Though he's been playing very, very well this season. We just don't have anyone else.
Is Trunduk dead?
Trunduk has been shit for the last 3 years. So as soon as he's again, he stopped being good.
All right.
Can I ask what's going on with Serra?
Ever since he left Montpellier,
what about
he's been terrible.
Is Plisson injured?
Plisson.
Oh, for God's sake, guys.
What's
us as Stade fans, they're all going to say, no, we don't want Plisson playing.
God. Another podcast actually named a worst best team cup after Cuthbert and Plisson. So, and you're trying to now suggest Plisson should be playing for France?
Cuthbert, who is it? The Welsh. Suddenly, I saw them all talking about Cuthbert as if he was. He's been playing quite well for club, and in my opinion, if Wales want to play Cuthbert on the wing, go ahead, because that is not Jesus Christ, they've started talking him up again. And I think when you've got Josh Adams, Steph Evans, Amos, you've got all of these players who can actually play attacking, amazing rugby and get around their winger, and then you want to put Cuthbert on the pitch. I feel sorry for the fans that are still talking about him. But yeah,
I don't think anyone's stop like bringing it every 20 seconds because that's what everyone does. It's like, oh look, Wales isn't playing.
Well,
We'll bring Cuthbert back.
Having been in Hong Kong when the Lions came through there for the Lions versus the Barbarians game, yeah, Cuthbert's not the brightest bulb in the room.
Oh, do you mean on the streets of Hong Kong?
He went. Oh no. Well, more to the point, he went out and got absolutely lathered before the game, from all reports. You're like, hang on, you're a professional rugby player. This is your big opportunity to play for the Lions, and the first stop on the tour, you go and get absolutely rip-roaring drunk before the first game. Just come on.
Yeah, great rugby.
What an idiot.
I think it is interesting because we spend an awful long time. I mean, today alone it's an hour and a half talking about rugby players. And at the end of the day, they are just 20 to 30-year-old men that are just going out and having a bit of fun sometimes. And it's very... I mean, that can be a very temperamental, time. And I don't know, it's quite weird to see the different ways that people... For example, if we look at where people started, and this is again talking about Quins, we look at Daly and Yard, they've almost started on even footings, and we're watching Yard's career not getting worse and worse, but kind of unravelling, and we're watching Daly's career perhaps getting up and up and up. And they've kind of started at the same point. They both went to the same school, they both went to academies, they both played quite well in their breakout years, but we're seeing different trajectories.
It's almost like they're different people.
Sure, but I'd say their skill set for wingers and 13s, or what Daly was a 13, they were similar for what people were asking for. And
I thought this was you. I think
Yard's
you plugging the fact that you played with them or against them again.
Once upon a time.
Because if we're going to compare players, we've got one declining career and one ascending career. And one that just never took off. What happened there, Sav?
One that sat in the barrel and is
Sav for
festering.
Quints 10, sorry.
Because as the old saying goes, those that can't do, podcast. I think that's right.
And that is... Should we wrap it up there? Because that's actually quite nice.
Yeah, think about next week. So in a fortnight, what are the games? France, Italy, finally one we may be able to win.
England going up to Murrayfield.
Stack your fancy team with French players.
Calcutta Cup north of the wall.
And you'll be fine.
Brilliant.
Shameless plug, I'll be doing a live post-match reaction to that with one of you guys, actually.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah, I'm happy to do that. Old Fred can do it. I don't mind. It might make more sense if there's a French person
or an Italian.
Or an Italian. We don't have an Italian.
No one has an Italian that watches rugby.
Welsh.
Or we can have multiple.
We have a New Zealander.
Or we can have multiple of you guys on. But yeah. So join us live straight after that game on YouTube for post-match reaction to that game
on the drive.
And if you haven't subscribed to Driving Maul, make sure you actually do. I think we've spent more time plugging Driving Maul. Maybe we'll lead this one. We'll have definitely the title will have a special guest Driving Maul, and we'll put your name in all of the stuff. It's because I think for most of us it's kind of a hobby more than a profession. I don't know.
Oh, it's a hobby for me currently. I would like it to be a profession, but yeah, that's the end goal. So the other two games are Ireland versus Wales, which should be an absolute cracker.
It's in Dublin as well, I think.
Yep, from memory it is. And then Scotland versus England. Now, Scotland haven't scored a try against England at Murrayfield in over a decade.
Yep.
Yes.
2008.
This was an Ed fact.
Sorry, I've got a stolen Ed fact. Sorry, Ed.
No, it's fine. I nicked it off the subreddit.
Oh, you nicked it off the sub. There you go. Was it 2004?
2008, I think.
2008.
Yeah, they last beat us in 2010. They last scored a try against us in Murrayfield in 2008. Yeah.
Yeah, they beat us with penalties, didn't they? Yeah.
And I'll be doing a live show after that game with a different pod, which I won't push on your.
How dare you?
Wait, so do we think going on? France are almost definitely
Go
good.
on,
France are in Paris. They're going to win, aren't they? As much as we'd like to think otherwise, there's not much chance
You
they're
never
going to
know.
take away an away win.
You know,
in Paris.
there's a first for everything.
You know what? I think if there's a team that Italy can beat, well, I don't want to say Scotland, but it might be France.
France will win by 20 points. Come on, let's bring some
realistically they will.
conversation.
Realistically they will.
I don't know. It could be close. It could be a massive.
Where is it?
No idea.
Paris.
It's in Marseille. So it's
Oh,
close
yeah.
to
Oh no,
Italy.
the French.
Marseille.
Yeah, it's close to Italy, but I mean, it's still France.
I do think.
Yeah,
That's like
it's
saying
about-
that Cardiff's close to England. You know,
I mean, it
we
is
travel
quite
there,
close.
sure, but the fans are going to be Welsh.
I do think there's every possibility that Wales beats Ireland.
Ed's gone roboty. I don't know about
Have
you.
I? That can't be right. I'm not using my
His
laptop.
battery's got too hot.
That is.
Your phone is resting in peace, I think.
It's
fire in his-
I could cook an egg with this right now. It's horrific.
Oh, Christ.
Okay, in that case, fine. I'm probably going to hang up immediately.
Turn off, Ed. I tell you what. Turn off the video, and then
Yeah.
You're
hopefully your
upside down
connection
now.
will get better.
Quite possibly.
Jesus Christ.
I'm so
Um,
scared.
Okay.
Poor
leave
network
it.
connection
We'll
now.
talk about something else.
It's all falling. Okay. What I was
What's
going to
the
say.
other game?
I think Wales could.
That's it.
Wales
Those are 3
have-
games.
That's it.
Wales could beat
so
Ireland.
Calcutta Cup, Wales, Ireland, and France, Italy. So it's probably going to be the best weekend.
I don't know what's. Okay.
Wales will beat Ireland.
So I'm going to
Whoa.
I'm going to England, Scotland.
And we're not.
Oh Christ! I can't hear Ed. There we go. That's better. This is a car crash. You know when I said I'll leave it? Maybe I'll just cut it there and put the music in.
Do.
Oh
Yeah,
no,
put
I've got
the
to have the
music.
Driving Maul promo actually. That might be the way to go.
Yeah, you can always add it
Yeah, that's
before
true.
and after.
Okay. Yeah.
Oh, editing.
I might.
Jesus, or way beyond my skill set. I don't do editing.
Well, we had a point where I had to edit in. I had to edit over conversations that we didn't want in, so I just put "me oh my boy." I did enjoy that, yes, or whatever.
Oh really?
Whatever that, please.
Me oh my! I have enjoyed that. Yes, boy.
There you go. There you go. So that was like our censor. Although if I had to go through and censor Fred every single time he swore, I think that would get a little bit.
Oh, you should use
I said
Boomfoot as a
fucking
swear
5
sensor.
times.
Use it like a beep.
Yeah, there we go. We'll do that. Maybe if we ever pivot to video, which we should do, because then we can build the brand. If we pivot to video.
If you all get hats with logos on, then you've made it.
Exactly. I think that was the first thing that Ed said when I said that we were going to do a collab. I think he said, "Oh, I like his hat." So there you go. The brand is on point. The brand is on point. There you go. So yeah, this has been Linebreak Rugby podcast. This last like 15 minutes or whatever we've been doing this, maybe the last 5 minutes anyway. It's been a complete mess. I've been your host Sav, so that's been fun. We've had special guest Driving Maul. Paul has been with us,
Bye, missing you already.
and you're regular bores, Fred and Ed.
I'm not boring.
Chatting as well.
I'm quite boring. Don't worry.
Bye. So the music's playing now.
Yeah. I like how we spent like all of 5 minutes talking about Scotland, France, and an hour talking about the other 2 matches.
Yeah. Well, Scotland, France.
Not really. We talked about the All Blacks. We talked about Rugby.
Fair enough.
We talked about South non-existent